Hello everyone, Manic here, and welcome back to part 2 of our robotics talk. So, last time we talked about the possibility of robots becoming like a common sight and a household thing, and we left off wondering if they would ever have the potential to grow and develop to the point of becoming ruthless savage overlords. Well, to recap real quick, we established that their learning potential is way above that of any kind of biological life form. How then do we make sure they don't become too smart and take us over? Well, the most important step really relies on the nerds of the world. Robots will only do what they're programmed to do, so it's in the hands of the programmers. They're just like computers. Now, the key is to make sure that these programmers have a failsafe to keep robots from hurting people, and this leads me to talk about possibly the most famous information regarding robots. Isaac Asimov was an American writer and professor of biochemistry at Boston University. He was born in Russia in 1920, and he wrote like a shit ton of books about robots. He came up with his three laws of robotics that people really still talk about and use a lot today for like movies and books and stuff. Well, before getting into these laws, I do want to clear something up just real quick. Roboethics is the ethics of how people are supposed to treat robots, whereas machine ethics are rules and morals for the robots themselves. So there is a difference. These laws that we're about to talk about are machine ethics, and they still sound pretty good to this day, even though they have been modified slightly over the years. So, yeah. And now, really, for all non programming viewers of this, I will let you know that to fully understand the laws, I do have to read them out word for word because the way computing logic works is very specific, and computers are very literal in their coding and their programming and the way they interpret what we tell them to do. So I'll try not to shorthand this too much so that way for the programming viewers, they'll understand the logic even though they've probably already heard about these things. So law 1 is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Law 2. A robot must obey its orders as long as they do not conflict with Law 1. Law 3. A robot must protect its own existence without conflicting with Law 1 or Law 2. And now then, I did find out that there's a less common law that was added to these later, and it is the 0th law of robotics, which says a robot may not harm humanity. The reason this is law 0 instead of law 4 is because the lower the number of the laws, the more important they are to the robot. Like, law 1 is the most important law that must be followed throughout. Like, you can't do law 2 if it breaks law 1, you can't do law 3 if it breaks 2 and 1. And if there was a 4th law, the robot couldn't do that without breaking 3, 2, and 1, if that makes sense. So why are these laws so important? Well, Asimov believed programming these what he thought were loophole-free laws that a robot should not be able to harm or cause problems for any person. However, many people over the years have thought about this a lot, and they've questioned the logic to these laws and posed counter-arguments against them. Some of these include a robot being given orders that they do not know will harm a human in situations that conflict multiple laws. And for an example on the second one, if a person is attacking another person, the computer would probably have a huge issue. Because according to Law 1, they would have to protect person A, but to do so would harm person B, thus conflicting with Law 2. Even though Law 1 takes predominance over Law 2, it still can't break any of these laws individually. So, yeah, that causes a problem. But, going back to the tech talk, I said computers are only programmed to do what they are told, so how do we define robot, and how do we define human? You may think this is a weird and simple question, but it is very important because how these two words are defined to the robot or the computer affects the way the robots would thus interpret a robot may not injure a human being. Because it has to know that it is the robot and that one of, a few billion people can be human. So these laws they're not as foolproof as Asimov wanted them to be, but they were definitely on the right road to thinking about this idea and this issue. So, to move on to slightly depressing news in one respect and very good news in another, is it regards robots getting tired of being our slaves and taking revenge on us. Most experts really think that this can't happen ever. So it's like, what? We've been lied to? Well, it boils down to consciousness and emotion. These two things that many people believe robots can never have. Now, this may seem like an opinion, but let's look at just a few facts about the issue. Um, Computers just can't handle any process that completely integrates information which is needed for consciousness to be a conscious being. Um, let's just do a quick little experiment. When you look at this picture right here, you won't miss it. What do you see? Well, you're probably saying, dumbass, I see a blue square. Well, a computer doesn't see that. It sees a square, and it sees the color blue. We see a single full frame object, whereas it sees the pieces. This is a small difference in the way we look at the world versus the way a computer would look at the world, but it does show that there is a big difference in us and them. Another issue is the fact that computers have limited memory, which would make it impossible for them to grow and learn a conscious. You know, we don't have to delete files to learn new things. We never reach the point where we can't learn something new. Computers do this literally every day. Memory gets full, and knowledge for that computer is at a max now. They can't go anymore. And as a conscious being, you have to just always adapt, always learn, and always advance on by your own standing. Robots, they just can't really do that, you know? Um, and finally, we would have to create a consciousness. Kind of a short point here, but a computer only has what we give it, and we can't give it a conscious. We, we, we really just can't. I mean, being a consciousness, first off, really isn't defined. You know, I've mentioned in a few of my other videos in this series, I've taken a lot of philosophy classes in my college. And that's one issue that you're going to talk about if you take any philosophy class, is what is a consciousness? You know, is it a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? Is it a spiritual thing? And there's no real answer, because a consciousness is something that we can't really tangibly study the way we like to study things using the scientific method. So, to reverse engineer that, as of right now, is definitely impossible. So, it's one of those things. But I hope I put your mind at ease about, a end of the world robocalypse, and helped you learn a little about the subject of robotics as a whole. It always means a lot to me if you all like the video and subscribe. Put your thoughts on robots and any of these points that you think could be wrong or you would add something to or take away from down in the comment section. It'd mean a lot. And always, Manic out.